Welcome to our Wednesday night wind down. Now, this session is going to be very similar to so many of our other sessions. The wind down part is so important. You guys are going day in and day out, and this session is to help with that. So, want you to have your mat, possibly a blanket or a few, possibly a couple different bolsters to choose from, or you could also use pillows. And I have some blocks here just in case. I also have an eye pillow to help make everything feel even more relaxing. So you can have any of those. You might also want a journal. So you can do this practice day or night. However, it's especially a wonderful way to wind down your evening to help you move into a more restful space and get to bed, especially if you've been feeling more anxious and more overwhelmed. So that's just a reminder of all of our wind down sessions. That's what they are about. Okay. So as you're collecting all of your items, go ahead and just take a few deep breaths and relax. Okay. And then we'll get started. All right, so for tonight, I want you to think about this idea of we're going to welcome in the flow that surrender brings. So our theme tonight is welcoming in the flow of surrender, which feels really strange, right? Feeling like surrendering is flow. So I have something to read to help you be inspired with this, and then we'll move into our practice. And as you go through this practice, I want you to allow this idea of like, what would it be like if I let go a little bit more and just allowed myself to be in this posture, or be even more with my breath, or just be with that moment between thoughts, between breathing. So I'm going to read you a little something. Following the current, going with the flow. The expression go with the flow is a metaphor that applies to navigating a river. When we go with the flow, we follow the current of the water rather than pushing against it. People who go with the flow may be interpreted as lazy or passive, but to truly do so requires awareness, presence, and the ability to blend one's own energy with the prevailing energy. Going with the flow does not mean that we toss our oars into the water and kick back in the boat, hoping for the best. Rather, it means that we let go of our individual agenda and notice the play of energy all around us. We tap into that force and yield to it, which gets us where we need to go a whole lot faster than resistance will. Going with the flow does not imply that we don't know where we are headed, but simply that we are open to multiple ways of getting there. We are also willing to change our destination, clinging more to the essence of our goal than to the particulars. We acknowledge that letting go and modifying our plans is part of the process. Going with the flow means that we are aware of an energy that is larger than our small lives, and we are open to working with it, not against it. Many of us are afraid of going with the flow because we do not trust that we will get where we want to be if we do. This causes us to cling to plans that are not working, stick to roots that are obstructed, and obsess over relationships that are not fulfilling. When you find yourself stuck in these kinds of patterns, do yourself a favor and open to the flow of what is rather than resisting it. Trust that that big river of your life has a plan for you and let it carry you onward. Throw overboard those things that are weighing you down. Be open to revisiting your maps. Take a deep breath and move into the current. So I hope that can inspire you with your practice today. So go ahead and meet me on your mat, and we're just going to start in all fours. Just allowing ourselves to move our bodies gently before we rest. Wrists underneath your shoulders, knees underneath your hips. And I want you to just wag that tail and allow the spine to come along. Inhale deeply into the belly, into the rib cage. Take your time with this. Just allow yourself to move. And now we're going to roll around in some circles. Maybe coming a little bit forward, adjusting our hand placement, going back and forth, slowing down wherever we're feeling a little tight in the hips or in the thighs. And just allowing your breath to move into those areas. Good. And imagine as you're doing this that you're breathing into the flow, whatever the heck that means, right? You don't actually need to understand it. You just need to welcome it in. That is all that this session is about, is we're going to welcome in this idea of surrendering to the flow. And as our little readings reminded us, it's not just about like throwing the oars into the water and kicking up your heels and saying whatever. You're navigating with the flow. You are participating with it. But that doesn't mean you need to control it. You're going to ebb and flow with what is in front of you. So for right now, continuing to move gently, maybe moving into a cat and a cow. I want you to notice the rise and fall of your belly. Notice the breath. And every time you start to get thoughts arising, taking you to somewhere else, just allow yourself to be here with yourself on your mat, with your body, with your breath, welcoming in whatever the flow is, surrendering whatever you need to surrender, and allowing yourself to move through it, no matter if it's uncomfortable or not. All right. Possibly moving into either a child's pose or coming into a downward facing dog and pedaling out those legs. Giving yourself a little rock from side to side. Just enjoying these moments of being in the body and allowing it to stretch, to lengthen. Letting the head hang, maybe circling it, rocking it from side to side, yes and no. Adjusting your stance. Just being a little playful here, just allowing the body to release the day. And breathe. And then when you're ready, coming down onto your knees, coming into a child's pose, and either letting the hands stay with the palms down or flipping the palms up. As you're here, allow yourself to remind those shoulders to roll back and away from the ears, stretching and lengthening the neck. And our first restorative movement of our session, we're going to take 2 blocks, stacking them as so one higher and one on a lower setting. Now, depending on what you have available, you might stack something else in front of here, maybe another bolster, okay? So I'm gonna put my bolster and lean it against those blocks. And I'm gonna bring my feet wide. And I actually might decide I want this bolster or I might want some other blankets. I wanna make sure that I feel like I can hinge forward and rest against this bolster and feel very supported, not feeling like I have to change my movement. Now, if I'm feeling like I'm a little restricted, I could sit on the edge of a blanket that can help allow the hamstrings to feel a little bit more open, or I can add another bolster and possibly even a blanket. So here's what it's gonna look like for me tonight because I'm feeling tight. I'm just gonna snuggle the bolster in front of me, lean my head down. So I'm just resting on my forehead. Another thing that might feel really cozy and comforting is you could place a blanket along the low back just to find a little more grounding, calming, soothing energy. So go ahead and set up your props and start to relax. You're just going to place your hands somewhere on your legs and you're not overly stretching. The legs are not super active. Yes, the toes are pointed towards the ceiling, but the goal is to feel this active rest. Okay, so go ahead and relax into this pose. Dropping your awareness inside, noticing the breath moving. Notice any obstructions or pauses, and just paying attention. Once you feel like you're starting to drop in, which could take a number of moments, then you can connect again to this idea as while you're breathing in this posture, allow yourself to surrender. Not to go deeper, not to get more stretchy. There's nothing you need to do. Just to surrender to this moment. Whatever that means, you'll find out. Just bring this idea of being in the flow right now to mind. Remembering where we place our intention, energy goes. So intending to connect to the flow of surrender draws it closer. Allow yourself to keep breathing. If you get distracted, just come back to the breath. Checking in with your body, bringing awareness and energy. So that prana, that life force that we're inhaling and exhaling, prana that animates us, you're going to just send your awareness to any tight spots, possibly in the neck and shoulders, maybe somewhere in your middle back, low back, in your hips. Don't forget to just allow the awareness and the flow to move into those spots. There's nothing you have to do, but bring the awareness and imagine the prana helping the body open and release, welcoming in more flow, surrendering any tension, and allowing yourself to be. beginning to deepen your breath in your body and gently starting to push yourself back up. We're going to move into somewhat similar posture, but you can move all of the props out of the way because you're going to bring your legs together. So this time, you're going to bring your legs together, and before we move any props onto us, we're going to pull the sit bones back to help lengthen through the hamstrings. And then you can either use, again, a couple bolsters or pillows or cushions and blankets, or you can use all blankets or all pillows. But I'm just gonna put one bolster on top of my legs. My legs can be relaxed, okay? And then I'm gonna place this blanket so that my head has somewhere to rest. Now, if I didn't have this blanket, you could also use a block, which is really nice. Also, not so bulky, so you can rest your arms here. Or you can use a blanket or a pillow. You just want to make sure that it feels supportive. You're not working hard. You're not holding yourself up. Okay. Good. So once you get this set up, okay, then you're going to come back to this idea of just breathing awareness into these parts of the body. Imagining that as you're breathing, the body, the energy body, as well as the physical body, is finding more flow. And you're allowing yourself to surrender whatever needs to be surrendered. Possibly right now it's just tension, right? But there could be emotional things or things with work or with family that have been troubling you. And just imagine that you're able to surrender those. And as you become more in flow and surrender, possibly choices that you hadn't thought of can come up and come to you and will remind you of another option or the right choice or whatever. So allow yourself to be. Beginning to deepen your breath in your belly. And then gently bringing yourself back up and unstacking your props. All right, we're going to move into a child's pose that is supported. So you're going to need a bolster, okay? Or if you have a couple blocks, if you don't have a bolster, if you have a couple blocks, you can always put a blanket or a couple blankets on top of those blocks, sort of recreate this feel. So um, with this particular posture, if you have some restriction in the belly or if you are pregnant, you're going to want to make sure to move your bolster away so that you have some space for the belly. With our last two postures, you would have already had to make those modifications. So this one is just something to think about. So the other thing that you can do is if you want to have more compression in the abdomen, you can keep your knees together and rest. Or if you want to drag that bolster in between the legs, widen out the knees, and then walk down. Now, when you come here, you're going to find a cheek, or if you wanted to, you could possibly grab a block or a blanket to put a little cradle for the forehead. So once you're here, you'll find a cheek. Just allow yourself to relax, coming back to this idea of flow, surrender, and focusing on the breath. Another thing that might be nice would be to put a blanket on the low back while you're here. Again, it recreates a sort of soothing, nourishing feeling. So it's something you can try. Go ahead, settle in. And at some point here, I will let you know to just gently pick up your head and switch directions so we stretch both sides of the neck. Excellent. Deepen your breath. Just gently lift the head up. Bring your head to center and then turn in the opposite direction so that you rest the opposite cheek so you can feel balanced on both sides. Beginning to deepen your breath in your belly and gently arching yourself and pressing yourself back up.